December 17, 1941, 10 days after Pearl Harbor. The United States Pacific Fleet, the most powerful naval force America had ever assembled, was sitting at the bottom of the ocean. 8 battleships destroyed. Over 2,400 Americans dead. A nation that had never felt vulnerable suddenly felt completely helpless. Inside the White House, there was panic. Generals were arguing. Admirals were resigning. Nobody had a plan. And then Franklin D. Roosevelt made one phone call. He didn't call his most decorated general. He didn't call his most famous war hero. He called a quiet, soft-spoken admiral from a tiny town in Texas, a man who, just years earlier, had run a submarine aground and faced court-martial. On paper, this man had no business saving America, but FDR knew something the rest of the world didn't. His name was Chester W. Nimitz, and what he did next changed the entire course of World War II. If you enjoy real war stories like this, consider subscribing. Fredericksburg, Texas, 1885. A small German immigrant town. No ocean for 1,000 miles. No warships. No admirals. Nothing to suggest that one of the greatest naval commanders in history would come from here. Chester Nimitz never met his father. The man died before Chester was even born. His family had almost no money. His grandfather ran the local hotel, and that hotel essentially became Chester's entire world as a young boy. He wanted West Point, the Army, a soldier's life, but there were no vacancies. The door was closed. Most people hear no and stop. Chester Nimitz heard no and looked for another door. He applied to the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis, a place he'd never visited, a career he'd never imagined, an ocean he'd barely seen. In 1905, he graduated 7th in his class of 114. The Navy had found its man, even if the Navy didn't know it yet. He was never the loudest person in the room, never the most glamorous. He didn't crave attention. He craved competence. And in the brutal, unforgiving world of naval warfare, quiet competence is everything. But before Chester Nimitz could become a legend, he first had to survive his own catastrophic mistake. And this is the part of the story that most history books skip over. If you're still watching, you clearly love real history. Subscribe, because what happens next is even more unbelievable. 1908. Chester Nimitz is a young, ambitious naval officer. He's just been given command of a destroyer, USS Decatur. He runs it straight into a reef. Court-martial. Official Navy reprimand. His career, which had barely started, almost ended right there. Here's the fork in the road that defines great men from everyone else. When they fail publicly and humiliatingly, do they shrink? Or do they evolve? Nimitz evolved. He volunteered for submarine duty. In 1908, submarines were genuinely terrifying machines, not in a powerful way, in a dangerous way. Constant engine failures. Carbon monoxide leaks. Sailors dying not from enemy fire, but from faulty equipment. Nobody wanted to be in submarines. Nimitz went exactly where no one else wanted to go, and he mastered it completely. He didn't just learn submarines. He became obsessed with diesel engine technology. He traveled all the way to Germany, studying how their naval engineers were solving problems that Americans hadn't even identified yet. He came back and built the first circular submarine base in the United States Navy. He studied logistics, fuel, how to keep ships operational for weeks without returning to port, how to refuel at sea, a technique that would become absolutely critical when he eventually had to fight a war across the entire Pacific Ocean. Chester Nimitz wasn't just climbing the ranks. He was quietly preparing for a war that hadn't started yet. By December 1941, he was chief of the Bureau of Naval Personnel. Respected, measured, trusted, and about to receive the most terrifying assignment in American military history. Christmas Day, 1941. Most of the world was at home with their families. Chester Nimitz stepped off a plane at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and walked straight into the worst scene any naval officer could ever face. Ships still smoking. Bodies still being recovered. Thousands of sailors in a state of complete shock. Officers who had spent their entire careers building this fleet, standing there watching it burn. One of his senior officers pulled him aside. The man was shaking. He said, "Admiral, it's over. We can't recover from this." Nimitz looked at the destruction around him. He took it all in, slowly, carefully, and then he said something that stunned everyone in earshot. The Japanese made 3 critical mistakes. And because of those 3 mistakes, We are going to win this war. The officer stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Nimitz continued. Mistake 1. They destroyed our battleships. But they left the dry docks untouched. We can rebuild every single one of those ships right here. Mistake 2. They hit our battleships. But our aircraft carriers were at sea that morning. Every single one. The carriers survived. And in modern naval warfare, carriers win wars, not battleships. Mistake 3. They attacked on a Sunday morning when our fuel storage tanks were fully stocked. For 0.5 million barrels of fuel, sitting right here on this island, untouched. Without that fuel, we couldn't fight a war in the Pacific for 6 months. He didn't see a disaster. He saw a chessboard, and Japan had just made 3 unforced errors in the opening move. That day, Chester Nimitz took command of the United States Pacific Fleet, the most damaged, demoralized naval force in American history. He had 18 months to turn it into the most dominant one. By early 1942, Japan was winning everywhere. They had taken the Philippines. They controlled Singapore. They were advancing through Southeast Asia like nothing could stop them. America was on its heels. Nimitz spent the first months rebuilding, not just ships, but morale. He walked through the ranks personally. He knew officers by name. He removed commanders who led through fear and promoted those who led through trust. But his real weapon wasn't ships. It was information. The U.S. had a secret team, Station HYPO, a group of codebreakers working out of a basement in Pearl Harbor. They had partially cracked Japan's naval communication code. In May 1942, they intercepted something enormous. Japan's entire carrier fleet was heading to a place called Midway Island. The plan was to lure out whatever was left of America's Pacific Fleet and destroy it completely. If it worked, America would have nothing left in the Pacific. Nimitz's own admirals were skeptical of the intelligence. It seemed too convenient, too clean. It could be a trap. Nimitz trusted the codebreakers over his own admirals. He bet the entire war on a decrypt. He positioned 3 U.S. carriers, Yorktown, Enterprise, and Hornet, in a location Japan didn't know about. He set an ambush. June 4, 1942. The Battle of Midway begins. In the span of 5 minutes, American dive bombers destroyed 3 Japanese fleet carriers. A 4th was sunk by the end of the day. Japan lost 4 carriers, 248 aircraft, and over 3,000 of their most experienced naval aviators, men who could not be replaced. America lost 1 carrier, the Yorktown. In a single battle, the most powerful naval force in the Pacific became America, not Japan. America. The war in the Pacific didn't end that day, but the outcome was decided. And it was decided because one admiral, in one moment, trusted his gut and set the perfect trap. Here is what made Chester Nimitz different from almost every great military commander in history. He genuinely did not care about credit. After Midway, the press wanted a hero. They wanted Nimitz on the cover of every magazine. He redirected all attention to his pilots, his sailors, his codebreakers. He promoted subordinates who outperformed him. He fired those who let ego override judgment, even if they were his friends. Admiral Halsey once said, "Nimitz is the only man I know who can make you feel like you're smarter than you are, and then you actually become smarter." After Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Nimitz signed the surrender documents for the United States with a fountain pen that had been handed to him by a naval officer. No theater, no speech, no victory lap. He signed. He folded his hands, and he looked out at the water. He then publicly stated that Admiral Yamamoto, the man who planned Pearl Harbor, was a great admiral. He respected his enemy because he understood that great leaders study everyone, even the people trying to destroy them. Chester Nimitz was awarded Fleet Admiral, 5 stars, one of only 4 Americans in history to hold that rank. He died in 1966 at 80 years old and was buried at Golden Gate National Cemetery, not separate from his men, but among them, row after row of sailors. His grave, identical to theirs. On December 25, 1941, Christmas morning, Chester Nimitz stood in the middle of the worst military disaster in American history. Every other person there saw ashes. He saw 3 enemy mistakes. That is not luck. That is not talent. That is a specific kind of mental discipline, trained over decades of quiet, unglamorous, obsessive preparation. The man who studied submarines when they were death traps. The man who traveled to Germany to learn diesel engines. The man who mapped out fuel logistics for a war that hadn't started yet. None of that preparation looked impressive in the moment, but every single piece of it showed up when it mattered most. That is the real lesson of Chester Nimitz. Not stay calm under pressure. Not trust your instincts. The lesson is, the quality of your thinking in a crisis is built long before the crisis arrives. If this story hit you, drop a comment below. Tell me which battle from the Pacific War you want covered next. Subscribe, because we're just getting started.